Welcome to the PKSOI Peace and Stability Journal. I'm Colonel Greg Dewitt, the Deputy Director of PKSOI. First, let me take a few minutes to update you on the activities of the PKSOI staff over the last 3 months and briefly introduce to you the articles in this journal. I will close my comments with a few upcoming highlights for the next quarter. Colonel Purnell, the PKSOI Director, Professor Bill Flavin, the Assistant Director, and Professor Dwight Raymond traveled to Yerevan, Armenia for the Challenges Forum as a lead U.S. partner for this prestigious international forum addressing the challenges of peace operations for the United Nations Security Council. This annual meeting focused on developing an implementation plan for the United Nations Secretary General's high-level report, of which PKSOI will be actively engaged in research efforts. Dr. Karen Finkenbinder participated as a panelist and led a working group on transnational organized crime at the 21st Annual Conference of the International Association of Peacekeeping Training Centers, IAPTC, in Brasilia, Brazil. Dr. Finkenbinder, who is currently on a Ministry of Defense Advisory Program assignment to Vietnam, introduced a delegation from Vietnam to the IAPTC members for the first time. As a U.S. representative, Colonel Mark Haseman and Lieutenant Colonel Jürgen Pratner presented a new Protection of Civilians training module package to the NATO Training and Education for Peace Support Operations Task Group in Stans-Orvendorf, Switzerland. Colonel Ray Bossett and Professor Tony Leto participated as peace and stability operations subject matter experts and instructors during a CENTCOM multilateral exercise in Tajikistan. Professor Tony Leto taught the Army Security Cooperation Planners course at Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. Dr. James Embry instructed at the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation at Fort Benning on the effects of military affairs and war on advancing national progress. Professor Dwight Raymond supported the Naval Postgraduate School's Leader Development Education for Sustainable Peace training initiative for the 593rd Expeditionary Command Staff Officers. The pre-deployment training focused on preparing the staff for the U.S.-India Yuddh Abhyas exercise. PKSOI was honored to facilitate the Association of the United States Army's discussion on the military's future in stability operations, which featured a prestigious group of leaders to guide the discussion. Key findings from this discussion included: stability operations is not something we do, it's Army business. We must institutionalize the best practices of the past 15 years and lead the effort for interagency synchronization. Stability operations occurs in a post-conflict environment. Rule of law is a key to stability, and the Department of Defense's role is to set the environment for transitioning public security to the host nation. Mentoring and advising are essential skill sets for stability operations, and stability initiatives should focus on the lines of effort from conflict resolution to host nation independence. The joint force must be sized appropriately for increasing stability operations commitments. Humanitarian assistance is an aspect of stability not often addressed in articles, so Colonel Hodges' submission on the challenges in Vietnam's pandemic prevention program is a welcome addition to this journal. As part of an engagement strategy to assist in developing human rights in Vietnam, the U.S. initiated a pandemic prevention program to enhance health care. The role of UN peacekeepers in Africa is expanding to address the increasing need for anti-terrorism operations to protect the population from mass atrocities. Lieutenant Colonel Norihisa Urakami, the International Peace Operations Analyst at PKSOI, examines the capabilities of the African Standby Force and the limits of the United Nations Department of Peacekeeping Operations to counter terrorist threats. The U.S. is frequently asked for post-conflict stabilization and governance engagements with the goal of establishing a stable, self-governing, and developing country. Eric Wolterstorff presents the Inclusive Nationalism Country Assessment Tool, set as a methodology for creating a common inclusive nationalism view among all local and international stakeholders in order to define a shared understanding of a national identity. This process generates a dialogue among all stakeholders that provides a forum to assess the current state of the country and to develop an integrated planning and implementation strategy for the future. PKSOI has made available free introductory e-learning on United Nations peacekeeping operations to the U.S. military through the Peace Operations Training Institute on the ATN portal. In the upcoming months, PKSOI will be participating in several key events. The 2015 Civil Affairs Symposium on November 20th, which will address civil affairs, a force for engagement and conflict prevention. The Future of Stability Operations at the 10th International Stability Operations Association Summit in Washington, D.C. And lastly, a NATO Lessons Learned Conference from 10 to 12 November 2015 at the Portuguese Military Academy. If you have an article which aligns thematically with the PKSOI Journal, or would like to propose a collaborative research initiative, please contact us. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the journal.